Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions webinar. Today we're going to be talking about contact types and contact type groups and how you can use them in organizing and searching for contacts in your system. The first thing that I'll mention, just to make sure that we all understand what these contact types are, I want to share with you what contact types aren't. A lot of times when I mention contact types, people first think of the different folders that your contacts can be included in. That's not the contact types that we're going to be discussing today. Those are called contact resource types. If you're interested in that, I have a webinar about that on our YouTube page called Resource Types for Contacts or Contact Resource Types. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but you can learn how to add more of those contact resource type folders if you want. The contact types that we're going to be talking about today are almost like labels or tags that you can apply to a contact. And then from the contact manager, you can use these contact types to be able to more effectively search for a particular type of contact. So in this example, I opened up one of my contacts, and you can see that I have a section here with my contact types and the groups. The contact type is going to be the actual thing that I apply to them, like a city name, a vendor type, or a region. And then city, contact type, or region are the contact type groups. And that will make a little bit more sense as we dig in and start looking at how to set both of these up. But I just wanted to show that as a quick overview. And I also want to quickly show the contact manager so that you can see where these contact type groups and contact types come into play. You could find that it would be really easy to search all your contacts and then filter by certain criteria that you're looking for. We'll come back to that in a minute. First, let's look at where you can access these contact types and contact type groups. If you go to your Contacts menu, then click Contact Types, the first thing that'll pop up is a listing of all of your contact types. Most of you will, if you haven't set these up in the past, will probably have nothing on this page, and that's fine, because you can start setting those up now. You also have access to the contact type groups in the Workbench menu here. Let's actually start by setting up a new contact type group. Now, I already have one for city and for region, but let's say that you are a worldwide AV supplier and you do jobs all over the world, so maybe you also want a contact type group for country. So let's set one up here. We're just going to call the contact type group country. Caption is essentially just going to be the same thing. This is how it will appear in your contact manager. And then description is optional if you just want to put additional details about what this contact type group is. So now I've created this new contact type group, and if I reload, I could see this is a new offering in my contact type groups. And what this does is now, if I go back to my contact types, and again, that's just through Contacts menu, Contact Types, I can now create a new contact type and assign it to that new contact type group that I just created. So let's do that really quick. Let's create a new contact type, and maybe we'll want to start entering some of the countries that we typically do business in. So maybe USA would be the first one, and the group is going to be that new contact type group country that we created. And after you've created a new one, you could just keep going over to the Workbench menu and say New Contact Type, and we could add a bunch more. So let's say that the next one is going to be Canada. The code is really just an optional thing here. I usually will just use an abbreviation or the first few letters of whatever the name is, but I believe that's optional when we're setting up a new contact type. And let's just create a few more here. Let's just start with some of them, the countries that are more around this region. At least in my experience, those are the 3 countries that I would do the most jobs for when I was still working in AV. Might also add a few European countries. And we won't go too far, but you get the idea that you create a contact type group that will essentially be housing the contact type under a specific group category. Let me show you what this contact type group and contact type name relationship looks like when we open a contact. So let's say that I want to apply some contact types to some of my vendors. We'll open up Corinne, and we already have a bunch of contact types assigned to her. So remember, the contact type is going to be this field here, and I can choose the contact type just with the selector box. And the contact type group is just going to be the category that all of the contact types that we assign to that category will show up in. So I've already assigned Corinne to Las Vegas. The region is West Coast, and she's an audio and a video vendor. I could also now assign her to a country, USA, and that's automatically saved. There's no save button on this page. That all those changes are just automatically saved. Now, I don't necessarily have any international vendors in my system right now, but if I did, then I could open them up and choose which country they're from. Now, you might be asking, why am I doubling up on a lot of this stuff when that information is already included in their address information? To me, this is where the contact manager comes into play, and these contact types just make it a lot easier for you to be able to search for a specific type of contact or a contact that's in a certain area or region, just real quick and easy with these drop-down boxes now because we created and assigned those contact types. You can come over to the address and try to filter there, but a lot of times it's just a lot easier to be able to do that through these contact types because you can be very specific as to what contact types you're assigning to people so that you can come in here and filter out with that. So let's give that a try. If I search for all, and let's say that I'm looking for a contact or a vendor who is an audio vendor, and my job is in Las Vegas, so I want to come over here and filter for only Las Vegas. So I can see that Corinne and her parent company and Steve, so basically all of the same people from this parent company, are vendors, audio vendors in Las Vegas. Maybe I don't necessarily need to filter by city, so I could come over and filter by region. I just know that I need somebody on the West Coast, whether they're shipping from LA to Las Vegas or whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm just looking for somebody on the West Coast. And what you can see happen there was now I have a couple more options because I didn't just filter for Las Vegas. Now I'm filtering for the West Coast. I have this new Capstone Technologies that I could use as well, either from Salt Lake or Los Angeles. So you can see how this just makes it a little bit easier to be able to filter through your contacts and find exactly what you're looking for. Another example might be, let's just clear all these filters really quick. Maybe I'm just looking for any type of vendor in a certain country. So I could use that new country filter that I have now and say, I'm just looking for a vendor in Spain to help me out with a job that I have coming up. Notice that I haven't assigned anybody to the Spain contact type in the contact type group of countries, so nobody pulls up. But if I were to create a new vendor and they were in Spain and I assign them to the contact type of Spain, then they would pull up there. I believe you can also have these filters apply if you want to print this page. So if I want to print out a page of all the audio vendors that I know in my system, then I can filter here, then come over and do a print. And that will be filtering based on whatever filters I applied to my contact type headers. Now, of course, this is a little bit busy. I would probably want to remove a few columns, but you get the idea there. It's only showing what I searched for or what I filtered from the contact type filter. So just as a quick review, let's go back and look at how to set up a contact type. You'll go to the Contacts menu, click Contact Types. And a lot of times I recommend first setting up a contact type group. So this will just be the category that all of your contact types can be assigned to. In my system, I did city, contact type, or I could probably call that vendor type as well, country, and region. And then all of my contact types I set up and assign to a specific group. So that when I do open a contact, the contact type groups will be listed here, and all of the contact types that are assigned to that group can be chosen just by clicking. So if you haven't assigned any yet, it'll just say none. You can click on that and assign them to whatever contact type is appropriate for that group. And then, of course, like we were just looking at, we can go to the Contact Manager, and we have the ability to search, or filter, I should say, these different contact types along the top here. So I hope you can find this really useful as you use the Contact Manager and you're trying to filter out certain types of vendors. I know a lot of you probably are already familiar with a lot of vendors in different areas. Like, if you're going to a certain city, you could probably use VER and a couple other vendors that you already know about. But a lot of times, especially if you might be going to a city that you don't do quite as much in, it might be helpful to set up these contact types so that you can come into your Contact Manager and filter and be able to find a vendor or client or whatever you're filtering for more quickly and easily that way. That's also really helpful for what if you have newer employees that are coming into your company that off the top of their head might not know exactly which vendors they can use or what kind of clients they have in a certain area. This could help immensely with those newer employees who are trying to get familiar with your operations as well. So that's contact types and contact type groups. This is one that I think could be especially helpful if you happen to have any ideas of how you've been using contact types or contact type groups in your system, or if you're coming up with some ideas right now, just having learned about them. I think this would be a great way or a great topic that you can go to our forum and share some of your ideas. So if you just go to forum.flexrentalsolutions.com, click webinars, you can see the webinar announcement for this particular webinar. And if you just want to reply to this webinar announcement with any ideas or questions that you might have, then we can start a discussion here. If you're having any technical issues with your contact types or contact type groups that you need resolved, then you can email support@flexrentalsolutions.com.